Okay, everybody, so it's week 7, and this is kind of a special week in a few ways because a lot of things are coming together and coalescing and colliding in a good way. So, as we know, this is Energy Y214, Energy Storage and Distribution, and what I'm going to cover first in lecture is just a few numbers on this USDA REAP grant. I'm not going to dive into too many details, but I just want to make everyone aware that this exists. I also want to make the point that this is a government grant that's frequently undersubscribed in Montana. So the point is, the federal government sets aside a certain amount of money for grants, and the primary reason of this grant is unique. It crosses party lines, if you will, because what we can see it's the Rural Energy for America program. And as we know, Montana is mostly a red state. People want their independence, tend to vote Republican out in rural America versus, what the more democratic politics that you see in the cities. So the point I'm trying to make here is the federal government wants to see the rural agricultural producer succeed. And that's the whole point of this. So what I'm going to show you are the numbers, and where we are right now, we're really at that neat collision or juxtaposition or relationship between energy and money. And hopefully all of the concepts that we've been doing up to now in 214 have brought us to that point. So we started out early on with just an energy assessment or energy audit. How much energy is my fridge use? How much is sitting in my batteries? What's in the food in my fridge, et cetera. So we have a good concept of energy and power. We also spent the second and third weeks looking at financial functions. What's the time value of money? What's the cost if I do it now? What's the annuitized cost? What's the future cost? We've also looked at depreciation. Now, you might have thought, well, why do I care? Why am I spending all this time in my Excel spreadsheets? Well, if you spend the time, learn your spreadsheets, learn your financial functions, here's the payoff. So we are very fortunate today to have with us, and maybe I'll tempt him to chime in, maybe not, but my business partner and friend Brian Jackson is in the room, so I'm going to show you some of the numbers that he has come up with. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that we are working with one of our industry partners, SADC USA, right here in Missoula, Montana, has been in Missoula for 9 years. There's also a legacy in that the owner of SADC has been in the solar industry for over 40 years. They were in the solar industry during the Carter administration. So if you remember, that was when the oil crisis happened. Jimmy Carter put the sweater on. There were solar panels on the White House. Ronald Reagan came into the White House. The solar panels came down, and the renewable energy that was about to thrive and boom in the 1970s, the brakes were put on it. Now, history repeats itself, and it looks like we are in a similar situation now with the current political administration. Let's get rid of the EPA, let's fire lead shot off into nature, let's get rid of all the requirements for fuel efficiency, et cetera. But I think we're in a different situation right now in history where the true cost of energy is higher and the true cost of solar is phenomenally lower, like 20 times lower than it was. We're at a point now where solar energy has reached so-called grid parity with fossil fuels. So that's the story. So what we're looking at right now is a system through the USDA. If we go ahead and purchase one of several different flavors, if you will, and the technology we're working with, let me just grab that one quick second. Okay, so the technology that we're focusing on with this USDA REA REAP grant, it's a good 1-2 punch, because at this point, solar PV has almost become an appliance. And what do I mean by that? Well, you go out and buy this array, and you have it dropped off more or less in your front yard. You don't drill a hole, you don't put a hole in the roof, it's not expensive. All you need is a qualified electrician to come and attach it to the house. So this chunk of concrete, I was a little suspicious at first. I'm like, gosh, doesn't that look just like the basketball hoop that you set up in the front yard? Is it going to blow over? Does it, as your basketball? So the answer is no. In fact, I just did an analysis earlier this week or late last week on the mechanical aspects, and in 243 we have a whole section on mechanics. And just standing freely in the wind, this base weighs 3 tons, 6,000 pounds, and the wind load required to blow it over is 80 miles an hour. If you put an additional tether, strap, drill a hole with an additional 1,000 pounds of resistive load, you can get up to 105 miles an hour. So now we're at the point where, yeah, you could put this thing up in Browning, Montana, and it's not going to blow away. So 2 kilowatts of power. Each one of these panels is knocking on about 330 watts. So add them together, 2 kilowatts total. I just mentioned the easy installation. You can be on grid, just plug it right into the system, or off grid. The system also comes with a power conditioner, and that's just something to make your electronics run a little bit cooler. You can also tilt it. So you can give it a summer azimuth and summer elevation and a winter elevation. You can't control the, unless you build your own gizmo, you're not going to control the azimuth angle. So that's what it means by seasonal settings.
2 kilowatts would be the nameplate.
2 kilowatts is the nameplate, yep. Yeah, that's the most it will put out. So now let's dig into what we're doing with 214. So we have gone through and done a lot. So here's where like your skill set in 243 comes in. We estimated that we're at about 4.5 hours per day, and that's the average throughout the entire year. And the D rating, we set it about 85%, meaning you're going to have some line losses, some shading perhaps, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not going to get that full 4.5. And efficiency is maybe not the best word, but it's just the capacity factor. And I think there's another word that's used in the industry. But the point is, this is about, you're going to get about 16% of that 2 kilowatts because the sun's not always shining, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a couple different models to keep in mind. One is sort of the Northwestern Energy, sitting at about 11 cents. I think it's maybe 11 and a half at this point. It went from 10 to 11 and a half, so those rates went up recently, versus a co-op. The co-ops are typically a little cheaper here in the state of Montana versus 8 cents. But I'm trying to show you is just sort of the big picture here. So if you buy a 4-pack, which adds up to 8 kilowatts, so 4 2-kilowatt systems. You've got 4 pods, here's the actual rating, here's the number of panels, here's what you're coming in at DC watts, here's how big it is, here are the annual kilowatt hours, here are the total lifetime kilowatt hours, so we can see all the relevant numbers right on this one sheet. Here's your year 1 rating. We all know that the price, the cost of electricity goes up, and I'll show you those numbers shortly as well. Here's your year 1 savings, $871. Here's the lifetime savings, and that's the result of just the energy. Okay. These are coming in just north of $4 a watt, which is, some might say, well, gosh, that's a little too expensive based on where we are right now. The point is, these things are going to work for a long time. They're going to be warranted. They're not going to wear out. So you're paying for a quality product. You're paying for the conduit. If you want to trench it, if you want to bury it, that's going to be a little extra. Here's the electrical disconnect. Here's the electrician's time. Batteries, inverting chargers are not included. That would be in addition to the system. As an allegory, we had 3 of these pods installed in 4 hours just last week. So if you look at the rate at which you're adding solar, it's quite good. So we've sort of turned that corner.
So would some inverter be necessary for function? Like, is there some included inverter?
Yeah, there's 3 inverters included. So with that 6, so with this guy, These are on inverter. So there are 3 inverters, 2 per panel.
But if you want to create your own battery base, you have to include extra inverters?
If you wanted, well, if, let's see, if you wanted to, that's a good
It's
question.
its own system.
Yeah.
Battery backup becomes its own system and its own inverter, its own battery charger.
Yeah.
But now you've got these low-cost, reliable, 25-year warranty microinverters, super efficient at the panel, 96% efficient.
Yep.
So the battery part of the system becomes decoupled, whereas a decade ago, you bought an inverter that had all those features built in. It was a $2,000 inverter. Didn't come with a 25-year warranty. So you decoupled those two things. So now if you just want net metering, that's the package. If you want battery backup, looks like this, another package.
Yeah, it's wholesale.
It'd be a separate package, yeah. Okay. So now we're getting into some numbers that look a lot like what we're used to seeing in 214. So here is the cost per kilowatt hour before incentive. So think in thousands here. So this is $4,000 per kilowatt hour, or $4 a watt. With the incentives, the price is just is in the is very cheap. Well, I guess 12 cents. Yeah, that's before the incentives. And then down, where's the after?
That's the total system cost. So
Yeah.
with no incentives, it's 12 cents.
Right.
You drop it down to the bottom, you say, okay, with
Right.
the incentives, you're 2 cents.
Right. Yeah, so here's where it gets interesting. Once the grant comes into place, we're looking at, 2 cents.
Tax credits, the grant.
Yeah, so here's the magic. I mean, here are the numbers that we've done before with 214. So it's a 25% grant, so if it's an $80,000 system, that's more or less the 10 pack, so 20 kilowatts total, $4 a watt, 80,000. The USDA will match up to 25%, that's what that 20K is. The Fed will match up to 30% in taxes, so you're taking that off the taxes. And then the other deal is we've got a couple different, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but the way the federal government calculates taxes becomes a little bit confusing. And the best analogy I can use is that if you get a tax return, if you get a refund, you actually pay taxes on that refund, right? So if I get a $5,000 check, then I have to pay back my refund check, which is a little strange, but that's more or less what's going on down here. So as the system ages, it depreciates, it's not worth as much, but you can take that depreciation off your taxes. And I think that's how Donald Trump pays no taxes.
Yeah.
This is the Donald, wait, yeah, there it is. DT, there it is, Donald Trump, depreciation tax, yeah. So that's the one of the things that also makes this very attractive. Okay, so there are the numbers, and I want to show you some of the graphics too. Which one should I poke into? Which one's the easiest to dive into, Brian?
I do the number one first.
This guy, yeah.
So the first two are just what the system produces, not including financing. So if you had the cash, you don't pay interest, you don't make bank payments, you just put it down, here's what it does for you.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to try to get this to a good
But not everybody has $60,000 to put down. So if you get a bank loan, you're going to pay $7,000 a year for 10 years, which is, and so you need to model what that was worth to somebody because it's a different return. But it's leveraged. So the truth is, you have a higher return, you just end up with less money in your pocket because you spent less. You only spent $7,000 a year for this $80,000 system, so financing is not bad.
And so could you, in theory, get like a 1-year bank loan for the system and pay all of it off besides the difference with the tax credits you get at the end?
Well, the tax credits come over a period of 6 years. So during the first 6 years, they dramatically, 76% of them are in the first 2 years, 86% of them are in the first 3. So you could theoretically do a 3-year loan and just cover it with all of your tax savings. That's not a bad strategy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's what we're looking at. So when we do these financial analyses, we're always looking, so what's the payback? And every single economic problem comes back to, do you want the money now or do you want the money later? Well, you're gonna spend something up front. The point of the USDA grant is that it's gonna really sweeten the deal. So here's just kind of two, relatively simple payback curves. Let me make this more like 110% if I can. Okay, so here's your initial invested. A lot of this, the taxes come back, the depreciation comes back. That's that big hop in the first year. The rest of it is coming back. Some of it's in depreciation, and a lot of it's just the fact that you're making electricity, and you're making electricity rather than buying electricity. So by year 5, you're breaking even. We had another calculation earlier on a previous video where it looked like we were breaking even at year 3. Seemed good to be true, and it was, but we're still much quicker payback than you typically see in Montana. And then the yellow line is without the USDA grant, you're still in a 10-year payback period. So somebody who's like owns the ranch, 3rd generation, 4th generation Montana is going to be there forever. 10 years is a drop in the bucket. So either way, you're going to win with or without the grant.
Seems like if you just consider it as like an abstract investment,
Yeah.
a 5-year payback on an $80,000 investment seems pretty insane to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
that seems rapid.
Yeah, it is.
Because at that moment, you're at break even, and everything that this does for you for the next 20 years, that's 5 years. You have 20 years still in the warranty. Everything it does for you at that point forward is gravy, and guess what it does? It generates $100,000 worth of electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just paid itself off in 5 years, and now you got $100,000 coming to you a little bit every year.
Yeah, and that's this guy right here. So if we kind of look at in the long run,
And this is with financing, so this
Yeah.
changes.
this is what, this is really the difference between, and this is right here, this is the beauty between renewables and non-renewables. If you just keep paying the utility company to keep, well,
The red line's your bill.
yeah, and I guess what this does though, it really distinguishes not between renewables or non-renewables, because this energy could be coming from a wind farm or hydro. It's just like
It's just
you
not yours.
own the power.
It's not your
Exactly.
system.
Exactly. This is the power is in your hands. The power is on your property. Yeah. So here's the difference. It's a $250,000 swing is what it is. It's $100,000 that's still in your pocket versus $126,000 that's not. So this is the business as usual. This is the brave new world of solar power. So that's it. I don't know how you argue with it. $250,000 for a $16,000 investment up front.
And it's worse than that, because what we didn't put on that is, if the old way, if you don't invest in your own system, you're going to still pay all those taxes that you saved on the new way up on top. And so what we're about to do is change this curve and say, look, you've got a choice. You pay the taxes and you pay the power bill, or you invest in a system and you save taxes and you save the power bill. It costs you a lot of money for the system, but you own it.
Right. So the taxes aren't even on here, so it's actually worse than this. It's more like $1.70. Yeah. Okay. So any questions? I didn't think so. Where do I go to hop on this? We've also, we're really lucky in that the Missoula Federal Credit Union is willing to do the financing. So we've got the Fed on board, we've got SADC. And here's the number.
So you briefly mentioned that this is for rural areas only, so this is not something like a resident of Missoula could take advantage of?
That's right. To qualify for the REAP grant, you have to be rural, and I think Montana's got, like 50 square miles of non-rural.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little bit of Missoula and a little bit of Billings. Everything else is rural.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's got to be a rural small business, not a residential, so it's a small business or an ag producer. If you have 51% of your income from ag, you can apply as a farmer or a rancher.
Yeah, right there.
But
So
most of the farmers and ranchers have half of their income coming from other investments, so sometimes it's tougher being just an ag producer.
Yeah. So this is who's eligible.
Is there any similar program for residential areas?
No, if you're a resident, if you're a resident, you can apply for some tax breaks, but it's fairly modest.
There's $1,000 from the state, so a lot of states have different programs. With residential, the state offers $500 per taxpayer. So if you put in, one system, $8,000 system, you can save $1,000 by putting that in as a double income. A lot of states have significant state incentives. California, the reason they have so much is because they had a tremendous amount of state incentives on top of the federal.
Yeah. So this is where we are. I mean, this is one we're focusing on, but it's fairly diverse. If you want to go hydrogen, there it is. So this is it's a challenging grant to apply for, but through SATIC, we're making it easy. And I would love it if I had a phone number here. Give me one quick second. So anyway, one last thing, I just realized that SATIC does need to put their phone number on the website, but let me let me just grab it for you here while we're on the line. While we are on the line. So the number to call, you got it?
Yes,
Sweet.
on the bottom.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and type it out. So there's a couple, and I think since we're all in the 406, I'll pull out a version of Word, I'm just gonna type it on the screen and leave it there. Yeah, we're in a good place with solar these days. Really good. So the number is 406-493-1861 or 1-866-99-SATIC. So we're looking at 406 493 1861. You can also call 1-866-99-SATIC. Okay, so that's it. Phone's going to start ringing. Okay, everybody, I'll get into the rest of the lecture now. Thanks.